Welcome back to the post-race edition of For the Duels. I'm Casey Campbell, and hidden inside the dark, it's Harry Loomis. Of course. How's it going, buddy?
It's doing pretty good. I didn't realize how bad the lighting was in my room. There we go. I got a bucket of Lucky Charms. It's
Oh
blocking all the
yeah,
lights.
yeah. There we go. There we go.
There we go. But I'm doing pretty well. It's good to see the 17 car back in victory lane, no matter how it happens.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into it, remind everybody who you're with and all that stuff.
So I have my own website, LoomisNASCARTalk.com, and I write occasionally for Joshua Slayton up there behind the wall.
Yeah, the behind the wall. Yep. Josh has been on this podcast before, so that's good.
Right on, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, let's talk about the duels. Overall, we'll get. There's a lot of things I want to get to with this. RFK sweeps both. What a performance by them, because 2 weeks ago when we saw in the LA Clash that they just performed like crap, and it was not good. They didn't make the main. They didn't really show up. No, they showed up tonight. Of course, getting the big win, a resurgence of sorts of RFK, and yes. How about that?
Looking back on it, I was kind of surprised that Keselowski in particular was kind of a no-show at the Clash. Like, he was never really a factor, even when that second last driver in, whatever they call that, last chance race.
Yeah.
Even when all the hell was breaking loose around him, he was just not a factor. Looking back on it, it kind of does make sense that they would kind of show more what they're capable of at a race like Daytona, when Chris Buescher, in my opinion, one of the more underrated super speedway races. He's won stages. He finished third at the 500 a few years ago. And Brad Keselowski, we know what his acumen is at Talladega in particular, and he's done well at Daytona. So it makes sense that they would have a better showing with how good those two in particular are, how good the Fords have been. And Fords in particular blew me away. I didn't expect by any means them to be this good and for them to just completely drive away from the rest of the field. There were 4-car breakaways in both of the two duels, all Fords. I never would have expected that. And it's really impressive. It's a really good sign looking forward. Actually, I was one that was big on Roush this year. I had both cars making the playoffs, but I did not expect this early of a statement. That's just a hook on my part.
Yeah, we did when we did our preview show grids. You were the only driver that had both RFK cars in the playoffs. So that's good. That's quite a statement from RFK right there. Maybe it's a preview of things to come. Overall, let's talk about. I want to dissect a few things so that I noticed from there. How did you like the racing tonight? Were you surprised anything? Because we saw the two lines, and then everybody went to the top, and then craziness happened ensued. We didn't see it as much in the first one. We sort of saw it in the second one.
Yeah, I think I'm holding their breath a little bit in that first duel, just because it's a brand new car, no one really to expect, and I was surprised that they were as side by side as they were to begin the first duel. My question early on was, are Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman even going to battle in this? Because they're the two guys that had their spots locked up, and this is the most unpredictable, uncertain duels maybe we've ever had, with the scarce amount of supplies and cars that everybody has. So I was thinking, maybe do they even just ride back, log and preserve their cars? But everybody raced, and it looked good. It was clean racing until the last lap, and I think it was a pretty good sign. Drivers were able to make moves, they were able to get aggressive, and it wasn't like the really big runs that we saw like in 2019 and 2020, where as soon as you tried to block, it was a 15-car wreck going backwards. It was good racing. You were able to get aggressive, but it wasn't going to bite you in the butt at the same time. So I kind of like what we see here. I wish we would have seen more big packs after the green flag pit stops, when it got spread out a little bit, but I like what I saw.
Yeah, Denny spinning around on pit road. If it was the Gen 6 car, that car would have been done.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to see those composite bodies paying dividends early on. Denny's that guy on pit road. He's always going to go for it, and it bites him more often than not. But I'm glad the car is okay.
How did you like the pit stops? Because remember, it's the one lug and compared to the five that we're so used to. We're going to still see 5 lug pit stops. So if you watch the Xfinity and Truck series and also the Arca Menard series, let's talk about that for a second. What was that like? It looked like an IMSA pit stop a little bit.
I was about to say it almost looked like an IndyCar into pit stop, just the way that it was quick on, quick off. But I was listening to Brad Gailey and Larry McReynolds' show yesterday on Sirius XM, and they had Chad Knaus on there talking about how the pit stops, once they start getting it right, it's going to be in the 9 to 10 second range. That's going to be a huge factor later on when we get to some races, like say a Michigan that have long green flag runs, where you're going to save that a little bit of time. And if you have to make, say, an unscheduled stop, you're going to save a little bit of time. Maybe that's going to be the difference between you going maybe a lap down versus 2 laps down. I think it's going to have a big butterfly effect going forward. But it's interesting. It's different. I definitely miss the 5 lug net sound, but I think the change is good. I think it's gonna be a good thing.
Like I said, you will still get 5 lug pit stops in Xfinity and in trucks for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the cars that had to race their way in. We did see Jacques Villeneuve had some problem, but he was already in. Noah Gragson, he was already in. How about let's talk about 2 cars that we'll start with Greg Biffle and NY Racing. There was he had quite a big distance on Timmy Hill in that second race.
Yeah, he was definitely the raciest of the drivers to make their way in on their performance in the race. Gralla kind of fell to the back right away, and same thing with Timmy Hill. He was really was kind of mixing it up a little bit in that front pack before he had the trouble on pit road, and then he ran. And he didn't have the best qualifying time, which it's kind of hard to say what that means about the car because, one, it's Daytona, B, it's a brand new team, but by far, without a shadow of a doubt, the most experienced of those guys that had to run, and he's pretty good at this. He got his first win at Daytona. He's been close to winning a bunch of Daytona 500s. He's underratedly good at this. So I wasn't surprised at all to see him kind of mix it up and hold his own despite not running in the series in 6 years.
Yeah, obviously, of course. It'll be good to see the Biff back in the Daytona 500. How about the money team? They're in the Daytona 500 too. And that got a little bit more nervous. Kaz Gralla is in the Daytona 500 again, but how about the money team in this race? They kind of made things interesting a little bit.
I never would have thought that I would see Michael Jordan and Floyd Mayweather field cars in the Daytona 500. But Gralla, I'm a big fan of Gralla. I've always liked him. I really kind of wrote him off in that first duel because it was single file. There were no cautions coming. I didn't even notice that he was in that back pack hanging with the draft and picking up speed. But all of a sudden, I'm looking at the final results after Keselowski won and he's ahead of him. And I see the chat is blowing up and everything like that. And I didn't even realize that he had gotten back there and they showed the replay. And it was just a perfect storm of events. Daniel Hemrick coming in, and I guess I don't even know if he meant to do it, but coming in and helping him out. And unfortunately, leaving JJ Yeley out to drive, who did a pretty good job. But I think Gralla is a slightly better driver. And I think that's going to be a slightly more competitive car if the cars kind of play out for them. But I'm excited. That's a really cool story. Except the car, that car looks crazy to me. I can't get used to that thing.
Yeah, if you saw the interview I did with Kaz back a few weeks ago, he did put on some Pit Viper shades. It was something. It's amazing. Oh, and if you want to see me completely lose it during an interview, I almost did there when he did that. Holy crap! He just put him on. It's like the funniest thing ever. We didn't even talk about one of the biggest stories, and I think the biggest story of the night, is I don't know if it's that big, but Logano decided to make things interesting.
Joey's gonna make things interesting. He was saying it during media day. There's no orders, keeping cars. He's going for the win. And as much as you love that, you got to look at it this way. There's a scarce number of backup cars. And there was 4 cars in that front pack.
Yep.
If if Logano gets past Buescher and he loses the draft and he falls back to fourth, you're starting 10th of the Daytona 500 with a car that led the most laps in that race and is sure as hell a threat to win. And most likely, you're starting, best case scenario, you're starting eighth. You're probably going to have a backup car. You're starting last, and who knows what's going to happen. Joey Logano is one of the best at this. I don't think he's going to be a non-factor by any means. He's going to find his way to mix it up at the front of the field, probably by the end of stage one, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
But the optics of the move just didn't make any sense to me. And it's better for a team like Penske as opposed to a team like, say, I don't know, Rick Ware Racing that wouldn't have the same type of parts and employees and everything like that. But the move didn't make any sense to me, and it cost him way more than a race win.
Yep. So, well, also something that we haven't really seen yet is a next-gen car crashing on a super speedway. I'm literally looking at my phone right now. Jeff Gluck just tweeted, on a positive note, Logano just crash tested the next-gen car at a super speedway, and the car seemed to hold up pretty well. Was anxious to see how it would do in a high-speed crash. The first real test has been passed, and I think it certainly did. So this car is pretty safe. We've seen how these cars can be put together, and we saw I don't know if you saw this before we got on here and record the backup car, Logano. They're getting that ready, preparing. It's already wrapped and ready to go. So they knew that this could happen. So ready to go. I know only teams may have brought one car down here, but it's looking pretty good down here. All right, now that the lineup's set, 500 on Sunday, but we got 3 more races before that. Yeah, someone's excited. We got of course the trucks make their debut. And then Saturday we got the ARCA Menard Series and the Xfinity Series, and the big show on Sunday, the Daytona 500. I know the Cup Series and the Daytona 500 is its own beast, but out of the other 3, what one are you most looking forward to?
It's funny because I wasn't a fan of the series last year, but the Truck Series race at Daytona is consistently one of my maybe 5 favorite races of the entire year. That race is that is 100% fun. It's hectic. There's carnage. There's chaos. But it's such a fun way to get into the beginning of the season. I remember the 29 truck race where, I forget who it was. I want to say someone like Clay Greenfield had his hood up and was trying to make his way back to the pits. Yeah. And all of a sudden they cut back to him under caution. He's driving like zigzagging through the grass. It's chaotic. It's chaotic good at its best, but it's a fun race. I'm excited for all 3 of them. I think I know it's a nationwide. Xfinity Series is going to put on a great show. The Truck Series is going to put on a great show. The ARCA Series, can't miss. I think we're going to have a good race this week. I'm really looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, and of course the Daytona 500 on Sunday. Jonathan and I revealed our picks on the preview show this week, and then how about you? Why don't you give yours?
My pick for the 500. I would make the argument that he might be the best driver there to never win a Daytona 500. At some point, Kyle Busch has got to get it. I think this is the year. Last year with M&M's, Kyle Busch, Daytona 500 winner.
That's going to be good. The popular pick out of all of us is Keselowski. So we'll have to. I've
heard a lot of Keselowski and I've heard a lot of Ryan Blaney. So I'm curious to see how it shows. Ford's looks stout, so it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, the blue. If you're gonna win the Daytona 500, you gotta beat those blue ovals. So I might have to change my pick. I don't know. I can't do that. Also, let's. There's one more thing I want to discuss with you. There was something interesting that happened during the duels, but it's not anything related to this week. It's next week. Fox announced that Matt Kenseth is going to be in the broadcast booth with Clint Boyer and Mike Joy and Larry Mack at Auto Club Speedway next week. Okay, for those people who do not know, you're a huge Matt Kenseth fan.
Yeah, I got a shirt somewhere over here. I'd pull it. I should probably look for it, but I don't even know where it is. So, but yeah, Matt Kenseth's been my guy since 2007.
What's that going to be like seeing him up there? I know that. Yeah, I know you miss Matt Kenseth. I know he's your guy. what's what's it like being a Kenseth fan?
What it's like being a Kenseth fan is, well, first off, there's more on social media than I realized. Like Eric Eastep was one of the first YouTubers that I watched, and I discovered he was a Kenseth fan. So I was like, okay, I'm not the only crazy person, because back then he was struggling. And then I've run across a couple on social media. It's fun kind of defending him because he kind of gets swept under the rug a little bit. I wouldn't say swept under the rug, but he kind of gets almost forgotten. He's a very underrated driver, but when you defend him, when you bring up that he's won 2 Daytona 500s, he's won a Southern 500, a Coke 600, finished second in the Brickyard 400, I think 4 times. You can defend him, and people are like, hey, he's actually a pretty good driver. It's not like going to someone that really wasn't that good. Kenseth is consistently regarded as underrated drivers. So it's fun to get to defend him. But him in California, I'm really that he was one of the more soft-spoken. So I'm really surprised to see him in the broadcast booth, especially up race. But I think he and Clint Boyer are going to have some fun dynamics. And he also knows the track 3 times there in the Cup Series. I believe he won twice in the, but I never thought I'd see the day. So I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, Eric Eastep thought he'd never see the day, and he's all excited about it too. Of course, he's a massive Matt Kenseth fan, so that's why the out of
massive in height and in amount.
Yes, we know. Yes, he is. Yeah. Okay. Well, Harry Loomis, thank you so much for always for hopping on here. This is the post-race Duels show. I don't know. We might do one after the truck race. We might do one after the Xfinity race. Hell, we might do it after the Daytona 500. I don't know. Who knows who might come on this channel. But anyway, thanks, buddy, for coming on, and we'll talk to you the races. It's going to be a fun weekend. NASCAR is back, and we'll have a race every week until the first week of November. How about that?
Love it. Yes. Love it. Best schedule in the sports. I'm excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, man.